Time's up. Let's do this.
We're in for a wild night.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 199 of Born to Be Wild, a wild and wild adjacent Hearthstone podcast, where we have fun hanging out with friends, talking about the wild and wild adjacent formats of Hearthstone, and spotlighting members of the wild community. I'm your host for this episode, ElectricSheepCity. It's great to be back this Friday evening here in cool Colorado, and I mean cool. It was snowing today. I'm joined by our fellow hosts, Hydralisk.
Thanks, Sheep.
I'm also joined by the one, the only SchmoopieDady.
I promise not to be portrayed by my technology.
All right, well, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome aboard. We record this podcast live every Friday evening at twitch.tv/borntobewildhs, and the video version of this podcast is then posted to YouTube shortly thereafter. Audio versions are also distributed to all podcast apps. However you are watching, listening, or absorbing via osmosis this podcast today, thank you. Yes. You.
Content plug, SchmoopieDady. Before we get into the main content of the show, I'd like to give a quick thank you to Shokunin and the other patrons of our show. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoy this content, please like, comment, and subscribe on this video on YouTube. Another simple way to support the show is to leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. If you're watching live on Twitch, we have some awesome emotes that you can unlock by subscribing to this channel. This is free if you use Amazon Prime. Finally, if you'd like to support the show financially, you can join our Patreon for as little as $1 per month. We have some channels in the Discord that are unlocked by subscribing to the Patreon, where you can see the show coming together each week. Check it out. If you'd like to interact with us personally, please join our Discord, a free and amazing online community of friends from across the world who love talking about Wild Hearthstone. Links to all this stuff and more are included, including our merch, can be found on our website, which is www.borntobewildhs.com. Sheep, how was your week?
My week was honestly kind of a whirlwind. It was kind of a busy one. On Tuesday, my kiddo, he goes to daycare. Tuesday is one of my days to go into the office, and we live about 40 minutes outside of, where we work, and his daycare is just right down the street from where I work. And so, got the call. You need to take this child to the emergency room. Like something is super duper wrong. Like you have to go like right now. So like Tuesday in a hurry, I'm just like packing up, rushing down that way, pick him up. He's like inconsolable. Take him to the emergency room. And by golly, wouldn't you know it? That little boy had an ear infection.
I was good at those.
Yeah, this is like his fourth or fifth.
Nice.
This is not his first.
Yeah,
he's not 2 years old yet. He's had like 4 or 5. I'm counting one time that he had them twice because he had one in each ear. That's 2 different ears to be infected. So that's 2 ear infections.
Chip off the old block.
Oh, yeah. Have they had to put have they done the thing yet where they put little plugs in his ear? They like kind of pierce the eardrum to let fluid drain?
No, they haven't done that. And this one we actually caught super early because, he hadn't been grabbing at his ear or anything. He hadn't been acting any sort of way until they were like, come pick this kid up. He's got to go to the emergency room, like right meow. So, that was exciting. In the realm of Hearthstone, though, I won my Legacy THL match 3-1. Thank you. Against Pesca, who's fantastic. So I'm currently 3-0 in matches in Legacy. So you know what, SchmoopieDady, who's on my Wild team, this weekend, I'm going to see if I can get my my Wild record to improve from 0-2.
I believe in you, Sheep. I believe in you. Surely Wild THL fanatics
You can do it.
WTF is gonna take this week against the defending champions Shakers. Like, surely we're gonna get there, right?
No question.
Right? Okay.
I say with all the confidence that I can pretend to have. And then at work, I'm now a notary in the state of Colorado, so that's kind of neat too.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool. Well done. That's awesome. I'm gonna get you to sign stuff when I move there.
I was gonna say we can get you to sign stuff.
Notarize
Thanks,
things.
pal shape.
Yeah.
And since we're sending it to you,
But you can watch us sign stuff.
Yeah, I watch y'all sign the stuff. I can't do it remotely. I'm not a remote notary. A remotery? I'm not one of those. But I am a regular style notary, which apparently is like a decent side hustle if I decide to like hustle for it. I'm not going to. But yeah, I'm going to like have the stamp in like in a few days. So that's pretty kicking rad. Yeah, been playing some Wild, been playing some Standard, been playing a lot of games of this here Hearthstone throughout. But those are kind of the high points. Those are the things that are kind of noteworthy. Hydralisk, how's your week been, my dude?
Pretty good. If you were listening to last week's episode, I was not there. The plan was to be there, but there was way too many things that I realized were not ready for a trip that I was planning that weekend with my son, Mini Hydra. And so we ended up going snowboarding. So I got this email from one of the mountains that isn't too far away saying, hey, it's the last weekend and lift tickets are going to be half off. By the way, it's also the Slush Cup, and the Slush Cup is super cool. Basically, it was really warm out. So for snowboarding, it was about 16, 17 degrees. So like in the 60s Fahrenheit, right? Okay. And sunny. So we're up there. People were skiing and snowboarding in bikinis, in like their boxers. People were in their boxers. It was just, it was awesome. And they had a superhero / supervillain theme for anyone who was going to do the slush thing, which we didn't have costumes, but what they do, and people may be familiar with it, is they have like this like 50-foot long pool thing where you go really, really fast. And the idea is to make it across without falling into the ice water. Right?
oh no.
Yeah. And so some people were, like I said, were doing it in bathing suits. Some people were, there was one guy who was fully dressed as a Luigi. There was one guy that had nothing but underwear and like fairy wings on his back. Like there was all sorts.
Sure.
Batman was there. That guy did make it, by the way. He was the best. The guy with the underwear and the fairy wings, he was the best. So Mini Hydra and myself decided to save that part for the end, and we did it. Which is super cool. You got to go through this big like Red Bull arch, and there was like hundreds of people like gathered around watching, drinking beer and just cheering everyone on. And so we're standing in line for it, and it took more than an hour for our turn to be able to go, right? Not everyone on the mountain's going to do it because not everyone wants to get soaked in freezing ice water. But we went for it, and it was so cool. I went first. My son wanted me to go first, and I made it to the very, very end. I skimmed like all the way across, and at the end, I just sort of like sunk up to like halfway up my calf, like just below the knees, but it filled my boots like full of
Oh no.
ice water at the end. Like I was so close. I didn't have quite enough speed to get on the other quite up. Which was fine, whatever. I consider that a make because
You should.
yeah, it was. Mini Hydra, on the other hand, didn't. Maybe I weigh a little more, so my acceleration due to gravity is a little more. I don't know. I'm not a scientist or physicist.
You might have had a little
here.
bit more momentum, a little bit more inertia.
There we go.
Sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean, right? So Mini Hydra gunned it as well, but about halfway across the pond, he caught a bit of an edge on the water and did a straight up like back somersault and like flipped and just rolled and sunk, snowboarded all into the water. And he was wearing
He must
like
have been
hoodie.
a crowd favorite, favorite.
Everyone just cheered like, yeah! Along with a lot of ooh,
And maybe a few.
and so then all these people stick these. There's the if you want to, there's ski patrol, but at this point in time they're almost lifeguards, sticking these like poles into the water, and then you grab the closest one to you, right, and pull them out. And I run up to him, and he's obviously you're soaked. You're wearing your snowboard gear, right?
Yeah.
And so his clothes weigh like 50 extra pounds because it's so much water. And he's like, Dad, I've never been this cold in my life. And he wants to go inside, but it's sunny out. I'm like, no, just we have to get the clothes off you. Let's get the clothes off you. Like, take everything off. And he sat like outside on a picnic table, basking in the sun, and he warmed up pretty quickly. So that's why we saved it for the end of the day, because it was a wet one. But it was super fun. It was a great bonding experience with me and Mini Hydra to be able to do that together. And I was stoked that he went through with it and went across. It was super awesome, and can't wait to do it next year. It's just we're going to make this a tradition.
Can I ask you a question as a dad? Like, okay, so what percentage were you concerned, and what percentage were you, haha, like when he's going through the jump and you're just like, what percentage were you just like, oh man, I hope he's going to be okay? And what percentage were you just like, haha, noob?
The latter is kind of where I'm leaning on that one. I was more stoked that he fell than if he would have made it, because it was more of an experience, right? Because
100%.
If he would have just skimmed right across and made it, I would have high-fived him. That would have been so cool. But the fact that he went like butt over tea kettle and just like went right in the drink made it so much better. Like for me,
if he made it first time, you'd never hear the end of it about how easy it was. Right. And he'd have like the overconfidence. And so like, he's got to learn the life lesson, right? That's totally why we want to see that.
Honestly, it doesn't hurt that like, his dad got like almost all the way there too. Just gonna throw that one out there. Like that's pretty nice
on that one.
Yeah.
A bit of a show off because I got just like right to the end. It just sunk down, and then I had to unstrap and walk out through the like last 2 feet of water, sort of thing. I missed
you got to leave with dignity. And and he got to leave via ski patrol pole, and that's like that's perfect. You established the proper hierarchy of patriarchy in the household. Excellent.
So while your son engaged with the pole patrol, mine engages with Paw Patrol.
Yeah, right. Just give it a few more years. Yeah, so that was amazing. So yes, I did miss last week's show, but that's what we ended up doing in lieu of the show. Is we did that weekend. It was just me and him. My wife wasn't with us, but it was great. It was honestly such a good time. One super cool thing is, I know this is Hearthstone, but in Warcraft Rumble, they have Dark Moon Fair in it now, which is really cool.
PTSD.
Oh, that's madness.
At the Dark Moon Fair. It's really fun because it added extra dailies, and there's another weekly thing, and there's way more rewards than there was before. Won't talk about it too much, but we've been tackling that in our Born to be Wild / Walk to Work clan that we've got going over there. So that's super cool. I'm stoked about that, but it gives me more quests on 2 different games that I'm playing, but at least I don't have multiple accounts. So we're all good on that one.
Progress.
And then quick in the King Corner, won't get too deep into it. I finished 4 books since we last talked. So
that's more than 2.
I'm at 12, so I'm well on track to beat the record for this year.
44.
I can do it. I'm around. If I continue, I'd be hitting about 40. So quickly, I finished The Dark Half finally by Stephen King. I read The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, which was pretty cool. I heard there was a great movie about that. I never watched it. Then I read the Man with the Getaway Face, Richard Stark. People have probably seen Richard Stark movies and they don't know about it. They're basically like heist books, but a lot of movies have been made out of them. Like Payback with Mel Gibson. If you remember that movie from like 1999, 2000, that was based on the very first Richard Stark book.
Hydra. I was 10 years old.
Okay, that's fine. And then the last thing I read was a book by Rod Johnston, who is the former host of Tier 5, Wild After Dark, who they no longer make Hearthstone content anymore, but he wrote a book. He did this journey of writing a poem every day for 65 days straight, and he was posting them on Twitter, and he ended up publishing it, which is kind of crazy. And you can purchase that book on Amazon. So I thought I would support the great Rod Johnston, and I bought myself a copy. And it's a really interesting read. You can, by the title, you can tell it says the death and rebirth of a human heart. So there's a lot of emotion in it and stuff. There's ups, there's downs, there's all sorts of things in it. And it was a really cool read. I'll probably read it more than once, in all honesty. And there's a couple poems in there that were kind of my favorite. So it was neat. So if you're into that kind of thing, I'm not even a poetry guy, but I thought it was pretty cool.
The only poetry I've listened to lately is SchmoopieDady's wife's favorite artist's new album. By the way, I forgot to mention, speaking of poetry, Record Store Day is tomorrow. So our local record store typically opens at 11 a.m. I'm going to be there at 7 a.m. to see if I can get the Gorillaz Cracker Island Deluxe Edition, because those songs are great. And this will be the first time they're released on physical, let alone vinyl, like anywhere. So, yeah.
Wow. Cool.
Poetry reminded me. So thank you, Hydra.
Yeah. Anytime. I'm there for you, man. All right, SchmoopieDady. How was your week?
My week was pretty boring. I think the most. Well, we'll start with the little Schmoopie update. This is a little Schmoopie update.
I love these.
Little man's been kicking butt in kindergarten. They finally figured out to keep him occupied that they had to give him like second grade math, and if you give him second grade math, he stays focused long enough that he's not trying to set things on fire. So like that's good. So he behaved really well. We made an arrangement a couple weeks ago that if he really wanted the new Princess Peach game, where I guess she she plays different roles on a stage and she's like doing stuff. And so if he was good for, it started with 14 days, but he negotiated us down to, he negotiated us down. He wanted 6, and I'm like, no shot at 6, dude. You have to give me at least 10 school days. And he's like, there's no way I can do 10 days in a row. There's no way I can behave 10 days in a row. And again, he's got ADHD. So to a certain extent, like, he really does feel like there's no shot I can do that 10 days in a row. I'm going to screw up someplace. So it's like, all right, well, let's do 9 then. Let's do 9, and let's do it one day at a time. And so what he would do is he would actually come home after a day. If he had a good day, he would come home. And he'd write a number on a piece of paper, and it would the color would change it. And I don't know what prompted him to do this, whether this was his own thing, whether this was grandma, whether my mom his mom, who like sometimes just like has these inspirations and is like just really good with kids, just like figured out it's like, okay, well, this is what will soothe him. But like I watched him, and like day 8 was like rainbow colored. He used a bunch of different colors. He was so excited. And 9 he filled in today, and today he got his he negotiated me down to 9. I said, all right, 9 is it. And so he got his Princess Peach game today, and he was playing that. And sure enough, like, he's really good at games. He beat Super Mario World pretty much by himself. Same with Super Mario Odyssey. Like, he's not doing 100%, but like a large enough percent that he's like, Dad, I can't win. Do this for me. And I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can. You're giving me like I have Mario reflexes, but like I can't. I'm looking up the level on YouTube, and it's just like 75% of streamers can't beat this level, and I'm like, what the hell, Schmoopie? What are you setting me up for? And so. He's really good at those. He's really good at those games, but like he plays the adult games, and it's like, okay, you get to the hard part, you have to realize they're hard now. What's up, Sheep?
What I'm hearing is that if you set him up with Miracle Rogue, he will hit rank 1 in Wild.
I mean, yeah, when he's old enough,
75% of streamers can't play Miracle Rogue.
I'm looking at it. I'm like, what is this? But no, he's a gamer, and like it's really cool when I do get to play with him on some of the platforms that have like us both playing at the same time, because like he'll save himself with like a really cool wall jump, and I'll be like, bro, that's pretty sick. And then, but I'll set him up with like the 8-bit version, like the Super Mario, Super Mario Brothers, which ultimately I wanted to be his first video game, but my wife undercut me and gave him Kitty Cat Mario instead. And so like he'll play that version, and he'll get so frustrated because he'll just be like, why can't I wall jump? I'm like, bro, it's 1989. They did not have 1986. They did not have wall jump yet. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is the oldest one. They didn't know they wanted wall jump yet. They didn't program in wall jump.
Dad wasn't even born for this one.
Yeah, no. It's like I wasn't. I was
I know.
I was close, but I wasn't quite there yet. So he got his video game, and he was playing that today, and he's very happy, and we're really happy and proud of him because he's doing such a good job in school. As far as like my play experience goes, I did take a sick day on Wednesday because like I felt something nasally on Tuesday, and I was just like, oh boy. And post-COVID, nobody wants you with a scratchy throat in the office, in the school, anywhere. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take Wednesday. And Wednesday, my report cards were due anyway for third quarter, and which feels great because then like fourth quarter is such a breeze. It's functionally in high school like 8 weeks, and then like you do 2 weeks of testing, and you proctor one test, and the rest of the time I'm basically bubbling because I'm not qualified to grade a living environment regions. Like I probably could, but I don't have the certification to do it. But what I do have the certification for is to sit down and to fill out the Scantron that the people who are certified to grade it are legally required to do. So what I do is I sit there and I bubble, and then they sign off on my bubbles. So like they'll assign points, and I'll go through and I'll be bubbling. And it's an awesome way to spend a week. Like I have some music, you jam out a little bit, you talk with your coworkers, you're hanging out. And like I enjoy the soothing like function of it, where it's like we're there for 8 hours bubbling, but like I don't know what's wrong with me. I enjoy it. This is why I played like, dungeon crawling, random encounter RPGs when I was a kid. It's just like, oh, it's just Pokemon all over again. Great. But this time I have a pen, I'm listening to Tool, I'm bubbling, and I get to talk with my coworkers who are actually cool people. So that's neat. Cool. So like, fourth quarter's coming. We're excited about that. So Tuesday, I was sick. Wednesday, I took the day, and I had a rare midday stream where I streamed the Tavern Brawl. And what was funny about this Tavern Brawl is it's degenerate, it's wild.
Yeah.
It's blood magic, and so all your spells cost health. And now you might think, oh, I know how to build a blood magic deck, but you don't. Because since they have had blood magic Brawl, they've changed the rules. You can't be immune and not take damage. Thank you, Stealer of Souls, though actually it was Void Virtuoso, but like, okay, we're going to overlook who that was. And also armor does not take damage. Your health takes damage. So if you don't have enough health to cast the spell, you die.
Yep.
And so Gimme Lamp, who is an awesome mod and frequenter of my stream, she quickly whipped up a list for APM Druid that was pretty sick. We modified it on the fly on stream a little bit, and I got 26 out of my 30 wins for the Tavern Brawl on it on stream over like an hour and 40 minutes. This is the perfect brawl. If you're having, I don't want to say the word because I don't want to trigger anyone. I'll whisper it. Weekly. If you have a problem clearing a certain quest that happens every 7 days, and you need wins in the Tavern Brawl, this is the one. Don't re-roll.
Oh, yeah.
Now, my list does use Celestial Alignment. If you've dusted a Celestial Alignment, or you don't have it, or you hate it and you dusted it, which I totally get. I would have too, but I need to own all the cards. You don't need it for a turn 1 OTK, but it does help. And so I was just ripping it off, and that was a lot of fun doing like a midday stream. And what's funny is like when you have these degenerate tavern brawls, you can actually get a fair decent crowd even on like off hours. I had like 26 people watching me play a tavern brawl, which was really goofy. And we're all like, oh man, you threw that one. But it was like one turn and like you're done. And at some point my queues were longer than the games because there is an MMR that builds up. So it's like I was like 11x tavern brawl, right? And so it was just a good time.
Not everybody tunes into a stream necessarily just for the content of the game you're playing, but they tune in for the streamer, right? So those 26 people were there to watch you, right? Because
yeah, but it's weird because it was an off time, right? Because like I'm usually coming on at 9 p.m. at night, and it was in the middle of the day, so like it was not. I was expecting like 12 people, like because I've streamed in the middle of the day before, and I've streamed like duels because it like I don't want to do like viewer decks or my typical content on those because it's not. It's kind of not fair if you typically are a regular for the usual slot and can't make the normal slot, and then you don't see your deck or whatever. So I just usually try to do something different. And it was just funny to see like how many wild degenerates were just like, oh, I see. This is the shenanigans we are getting up to, and they're coming by, rubbing their hands together, being like, oh yes, let's see if we can OTK the funny mage in one turn. So yeah, that was cool.
Most nights you can find me in SchmoopieDady's chat while I'm doing homework. You could not find me during that day because I was, working.
Because you were working, because you were doing stuff, because you had life going on.
I was not one of the 20-something people. Yeah.
But it was cool because I did have like Lasagna in chat who was just like, dude, what are you doing conceding? You could have won that game. And I was just like, oh man, you're totally right. I threw. And so we did that like, I don't know, 5 times. Exclamation point lethal if you're ever coming in chat. Let's just put it that way.
Yes. Can confirm.
So that's the end of my week. Do we have news?
Welcome to the news. The news is so good.
Let me rephrase that because
welcome to the news. The news is actually pretty bad.
It's kind of a mixed bag.
The slight downshift in tone gets me, actually.
Like half a step.
Like playing them back to back and you hear it get just like...
From the get-go even. So we're going to start with the lowest of the low here. And that is the weekly quest debacle. So we went through the patch notes for 29.2 last week. One thing that we didn't highlight because it didn't seem like a big deal was that weekly quests were going to change a little bit. Weekly quests changed a lot a bit. So Zeddy tweeted out, my weekly just changed. That's a lot of XP. So the experience amount went up a decent amount. The requirement for pretty much all of them across the board was tripled. The result, the rewards went up pretty consistently by about 20%. Tripling the requirements was significantly more than necessarily was resulted in the extra 20%. Some of them, like minis, went up from 16 minis, which still a lot. I typically would re-roll that on a weekly basis. It went up to 60. I would definitely re-roll that on a monthly basis. SchmoopieDady, take it away.
Reddit actually got something right here. Did you guys happen to see the Reddit post where it was open the waygate? They're like, guys, I know what you mean. Like the quest changes seem fine to me. And it was open the waygate, and it was like play 24 spells that didn't start in your deck, take 1.25 time warps.
That's
like nailed it.
I did not see that. That's incredible.
Nailed it.
Rare Reddit W.
Very extremely rare Reddit W. But they did try to fix it.
Yeah, I just want to give my first impression. Now that I'm not, I'm a little. It's been a few days, right? But basically, when on Monday night or whatever it was, I got home from work and I do what I do. I usually try to complete my weeklies right away. So I didn't fully get there though. I got close. I think I had 4 out of 5 wins on ladder, and I had 12 out of 16 for the minis. And then I had something for hero power, right? I don't remember how many. And I was like, okay, whatever, good enough. And I'll finish tomorrow. Famous last words. 12 out of 16, guys. Went up to 12 out of 60.
Oh my god, yeah.
Whoa.
Whoa, indeed. I actually was like, I'm not gonna do it. Like really? Like, I already don't play enough decks that have minis in them. I play a lot of Wild, but there's not a lot of opportunity to do that. So I usually make a custom deck, right? That it's gonna do the whole miniature mini thing. And I'll do that. Whatever. I'll play it in standard or I'll play some casual, and I will do it. And I will get to the 16. It's not that horrible, but like you said, Sheep, it's kind of one that people may or may not want to reroll since there isn't that many cards to do that work, right?
It's work. It's obnoxious.
And but the 60, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I don't want to do this. So I haven't yet. It's still sitting at 12 out of 60 at this point.
60 is more than the achievement for miniatures.
The first stage, there's a, and the second stage, it's 20, 40, 80. So it's like they're basically looking at you to kind of, and like this is an achievement that's supposed to last the whole expansion, right? So this is like a. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Basically, this stunted my gameplay for the week. Like after I saw it, I was like, meh, I don't really feel like doing that. So I'll do my dailies. Maybe they'll fix it. Like that's where my brain was at. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And if they fix it, then I'll just wait, and then I'll do whatever. If they're gonna change something, then I'll do it when they change something. But right now, I'm not gonna do anything. I'll do dailies and I'll go play Warcraft Rumble because it just, I don't know. It struck me as, so I used to play multiple accounts, right? I would play on 3 servers, and then I also had started another account with because this one is set up through like my old Hotmail, and then I also have my Google account, so that I started my Google thing. So I had 2 accounts and multiple servers going. It was a mess. If you guys remember, I played way too much.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was inspiring.
That's not one of the weekly quests.
Inspire. If I hadn't already stopped doing that, this would have been it. This would have killed it. It would have been impossible to play, like have a full-time job, be a father, a husband, like absolutely no. I got school that I'm supposed to be doing, right? Like I'm in school all next week. But yeah, that would have been it. And even if you think about it, for casual people, this must be extremely difficult to do, or a hard pill to swallow when this was announced.
And we will go into further discussion on that particular part once we get to the discussion topic, because spoiler alert, that's one of them. There were then some kind of a patch notes for 29.2.1, which is a server side hotfix, and among other things, which most of those are Battlegrounds related, so we won't really cover them here. But weekly quest update. A few of these weekly quests have been updated already. Now, 29.2 went live on Tuesday. I think 29.2.1 went live yesterday, so Thursday. May have been today. I can't, we found out about it yesterday. So some of the weekly quest requirements have been reduced somewhat. So hero power from 40 down to 30. Battle cry from 100 down to 75. Miniaturize from 60 down to 32. That's almost half. Still a lot. Win games in Tavern Brawl, Arena, or Battlegrounds, 10, down from 15. Ranked games, 10, also down from 15. Damage to enemy heroes, 400 damage, not changed this patch. Neither is spend 750 mana. XP granted by the weekly quest is not changed from the new higher amount. Dev comment. To get these changes out as fast as we could, we've put them into this server-only hotfix. That means there will be some weirdness where the numbers look unchanged in the client, but function as described above. So your ranked wins quest, for instance, will read 9 out of 15, but get completed after your next win, 10 out of 15. We are putting together an additional client-side hotfix patch to clean up this issue soon. See our recent blog post for more on why weekly quests were changed in 29.2 and why they're being adjusted again with this patch. And again, we'll have more discussion on this shortly, but we'll go ahead and just kind of read through the update on weekly quests as well, because they're kind of intrinsically linked, these two. So the update on weekly quests yesterday, patch 29.2. So this came out on Wednesday. It must have been, went live with some changes to weekly quests, making them harder to complete, but grant more XP. We had seen that many players routinely completed their weekly quests through their regular play without even really engaging with the weekly quest system. Our aim with the adjustments was to give all our players goals to play toward, and to reward our most engaged players who would likely still complete the weekly quest without too much difficulty for their commitment to the game. But we've heard your feedback. Sheep comment, there was a lot of feedback. And it's clear that we pushed too far. Sheep comment, they did. We want to reward players for their additional efforts, not make those rewards outside of their reach. That's why we're putting together an unscheduled hotfix patch, scaling most of the weekly quest requirements back down to a number between what they were before and what they are now. We'll keep the additional XP where it is. We'll have more information on the timing of this unscheduled hotfix soon. It was in the past as of recording, but it will be in addition to our first scheduled hotfix that is already planned. There might be some weird effects of this scaling down of quest requirements. When you log in, for instance, you will see a weekly quest over 100% completion. If that happens, it should get cleared up after you play a game and progress that particular quest once more. Thanks for your feedback on this update. We look forward to hearing how the changes feel after these adjustments. So, without going into too deep of a discussion, a little bit of editorializing is they realized they went too far and they scaled back. My particular take is that we will probably see some additional tinkering on these weekly quests to make them not just more palatable, but more kind of intuitive, because what they've kind of come out and said is that what they want to do is to give players more experience. And promote engagement. They don't want people to just feel overwhelmed by the hurdles that they're having to cross, right? I think that these first steps are a good first step. I think we're going to have more steps, and I think that we're going to need to have more steps, and I think that they realize that. What do y'all think? Starting with you, Schmoopie.
For this whole process, I've been playing a game that my Zoomer students like to play called Who Asked? Like, who asked? Why was this change? Why was this on the docket? Why was this brought up? Why was this a thing that? Why did this happen? Who's the brainiac who came up with this? Who thought this was a good idea and then sort of pushed it out? And I've found myself in a very strange and uncomfortable place on this particular week because I find myself agreeing with people who are, I would consider in the community, rage baiters, who get mad at everything Hearthstone does and every little change isn't good enough for them and they get pissed. And I'm just kind of like, well, you're kind of just sort of playing it up because a bunch of 12-year-olds agree with you. But like, I can't help but like my first reaction to this was just like, why are they squeezing the casuals? Why are they making it harder for people in my community, specifically the people I think of is like, I started streaming and I started inviting people to come to the stream from other communities who like, maybe they were serious in the past, but they've slowed way down for Hearthstone because the game has changed so much and it's not the same game for them. So like, yeah, they enjoy Hearthstone once in a while and they do the new funny every once in a while, but they're largely casual players who do like keeping up a respectable collection, and that's important to them. And so they do show up and they play. And then all of a sudden this weekly change comes out and it's just like you watch this process go through where they say, I already don't play enough as it is to sometimes complete the weeklies normally. And the weeklies largely are driving my play experience. And the levels that they set were just insane. And I think, like Sheep, we talked about it, and Hydra, you as well. Like again, this was a tough topic to talk about in the Discord discussion topic because it was so hot, and I was pretty hot about it. That is time. We're writing down the time now for that. Unlucky. And so, I remain kind of annoyed about it. Sorry about that. Where I'm thinking about these casual people that I enjoy having in my community, and they can't even interact with the game anymore because just taking away the weeklies is a big deal for them. It stunts their progress on their collections. And like Cyberon, champion of the Born to Wild Lister series, he comes straight to mind as a guy who used to say, my least favorite quest every week is 5 ranked wins. He hated it. Absolutely hated it. And I don't think he plays anymore, in part because of that. But like, he loved Wild. He loved playing casual Wild. That's where he wanted to live. That's how he wanted to interact with the game. But he was incentivized and he was pushed by the weekly quests to go get his 5 wins. Imagine if you told him, well, it's not 5 anymore. Now it's 15. He's gone. If he wasn't gone already, he's way gone. And play that out. And Hydra, I was honestly, I was, you didn't say too much throughout the week, but I was super excited and kind of anticipating your perspective from this because like Sheep and I are sweaty tryhards at this point. We both play THL. We're both keeping up with the meta. We're both, hitting legend in both formats, and you are having a much healthier interaction with the game where you're dialed back almost and you're doing, you're working, you're coming home and you're playing a little bit and then you're kind of signing off. So you're almost a little bit more casual than either of us are. Not necessarily healthier, probably healthier. Let's be honest, we play Wild, definitely
probably healthier.
Probably healthier. So I was interested to get your perspective and to hear your perspective, and like I hear a lot of the same anger and complaint from like your perspective, just like, dude, if I was playing three accounts, I can't do this. No hands is like, dude, I try to push for ladder finishes in 3 accounts. I can't keep it up if I have these weeklies. It's just too much of a resource suck. And It's just why. And I get the reason if we wanted to reward our most ardent and supported players. But I feel like I can't help feel like this has something to do with the Microsoft acquisition, and that this has been pushed from above where the devs are, and they're looking at a different metric, and they're saying, listen, you need to get people, I'm reading all about stuff and player about how mobile games are apparently judged on like player engagement. And this is a way to, this is a classic tactic on how to engage players, but like not this player base. This player base picks up a pitchfork and burns her house down. We're much more casual. There's some people who don't log in for a week and then they come back, but they still get, but they still do their weeklies and they still, make some progress on the battle pass, which to this point has been very, very, very generous. So, Sheep, you've been very patient, and I've been grumpy a little bit. So I'll let you take the reign for a second.
So you asked a very good question, which I don't think that you would expect my kind of jaded answer from our earlier discussions in the Discord. You asked who asked, and I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head with, be it because of the Microsoft acquisition or what, but I personally think that it's because of the C-suite suits who were like, oh, what can we report back to the shareholders or kind of make us look good like fa. And what they want to do is show that engagement number, like you mentioned, kind of going up. And I think that's why the numbers are so skewed, because SchmoopieDady, you and I play an unhealthy amount, right? Like,
probably.
Let's be real. My numbers, like I've completed all my weeklies. I completed all but one of them on day one. I completed the other on day two, despite the jump and requirement for it. Our number of games and the way that we engage is so skewed that the casuals are kind of lost in the mire of our ridiculously high degenerate number of games. Right. And I think because it's the C-suite suits who made these in my tinfoil hat. Week number 2 in a row.
I'm with you crinkling. I'm with you crinkling.
Yeah. I think it's because they're the ones who made this decision. I think that they're also the ones who decided or guided the numbers here, because you take the average, let's say it's like an 8th, let's say it's a 16th, let's say it's a 32nd of the player base who plays like you and I do. It still may be too much at a 32nd, but the raw number of games that we play dwarfs the casuals so much that it makes 15 ranked games seem still like chump change. Still like, I mean, they'll still get this done by like day 2, day 3, like tops.
Can I yes and that just a little bit? So like this is a little tangential. There is a tweet that Martian put out where he was just like, oh, well, and part of this is what I saw in chat too, is like, then they deleted duels too, someone says in chat. I understand from my perspective as somebody who loved duels, I understand why they got rid of duels. Duels would break, and that would cost man hours, and the team is stressed. And like, we can't have duels because we can't have nice things because it breaks too much. And like, I get why it was more effort. It took more effort to keep it going than it was to keep it going. And so they made a decision to take care of it and get rid of it. I did my mourning months ago, and you won't hear a peep out of me being upset about it now. You'll see me doing gifs of like, LA gangsters pouring out 40s, right? But like, that's it. It's like, it's gone, it's done, but I get why. And I'm not upset, and I'm not angry about it, because I don't think that's fair. Right? Because I love the game, and I want the devs to do well, and I want them to succeed, and I want the game to succeed. So I understand why my thing was taken away. That's not where I came from on this, because I am directly benefiting. I will get the weeklies done. Same. But at the same time, I'm not going to benefit, because I know how many people are going to look at this as a hurdle that you can't jump over. and are going to leave the game. And now I'm playing the game by myself. Well, not by myself. Sheep's right there with me, right? And maybe Hydra sometimes too, where it's like people will leave the game for this, and it's not worth it. And there was another yes and that I am forgetting now. But again, it's that kind of topic where I don't know where to go with this. There's so many places to go with this. And it's just the numbers seem so formulaic that they picked. Mm-hmm. Where if across the board it looked like, let's give an extra 20% of the reward for 3 times the effort. 20% of the reward, 3 times the effort. And so like the sense that it didn't feel corporate, it totally felt corporate. And the stance we are seeing now is, to a certain extent, in some places that I've seen, the thought is just like, we deleted a game mode today and people are upset about their weekly quests. Well, the game mode you deleted really didn't affected a very small but passionate percentage of the player base. It was growing, I think, because of people like Raffle picking up, but it was a small percentage of the player base. Weeklies affect everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. So, like, this was a big change for everybody, which is why I think you saw the community kind of rise up and kind of being like, whoa, this is not okay. And you're still seeing memes now. And I believe them when they say, like, this isn't a bait and switch. This isn't like we didn't go out too high and then dial it back. But they didn't fully revert either. They didn't say, well, we're going to reset values. This was a bad idea. We're just going to abandon it. The stance now is, well, you're going to be mad at us anyway, so we're just going to leave it as it is and maybe make some adjustments. And that doesn't quite sit with me, which makes me think they might not have a choice. This might just be what is dictated to them.
And I think if it was, the devs that we all know and love making these decisions, they would be like, yeah, our bad.
It's not.
This reads as a directive that they're having to kind of compromise on now that there's been this huge response to.
So I would like to say one thing. Ridiculous Hat is...
Poor guy.
A saint.
Poor guy.
A mother-loving saint.
This man is the community... representative, he talks to the community, he's the PR, he is the guy who is the liaison between us and them, right? And he's taking, did you see how many people added him? In all of their complaints? Do you think he made that decision? He did not. No. They did not run that past him. I'm not going to speak for sure, but it didn't. No, speaking from my experience in the workforce, there are certain things, and you guys had talked about C-suite and whatnot. They have expectations, right? And sometimes they're like, give us something. Like you have 30 days to show us how you can make us X amount of dollars, this much more engagement, this much more sales, right? Show me how you're going to do it. And then there is a number crunch, maybe some engineers, some finance all got together and they just figured out, okay, well, we're going to balance it. If we increase this much, there's going to be this much more engagement. There was definitely math behind it. I guarantee you there was some 100%. Sort of math behind it that actually checks out in their minds. But I don't think they didn't integrate feels, right? Yeah. There's probably math that actually checks out. Not taking in human feelings.
But their equation sucked. So it's like...
So TSA and that, Hydra, I think you're exactly right because, show us how Hearthstone is succeeding. I think this is kind of indicative of Microsoft or whatever powers that be now seeing Hearthstone as a mobile game. Because sales are good. If you just look at the mobile sales, Hearthstone is still in the top 5, top 10, top 7, something like that of just mobile sales. And we probably get most of our sales on PC rather than mobile. I know I personally buy my rune stones and stuff like that on PC because it's slightly cheaper.
Yeah. Apple Store costs more.
Yeah. And I'm a whale, so I know that I spend more than the average bear, and they're still in, at the very least, the top 10, if not whatever it was, on mobile sales. And so now that they're looked at as more of a mobile game, how are mobile games more kind of evaluated? And that's on this engagement level rather than sales level. And I think that's why, again, tinfoil hat, I don't have, anything and any knowledge that's guiding me to this, but I think that's exactly what they're chasing. That's why they're trying to make the weeklies higher, to try and get people to engage more, to complete their weeklies. And because people like Schmoopie and me and Hydra, you as well, like, because we play so much, we're kind of skewing the number up in their just formulaic C-suite, just suit, like faceless suit version of it, that the numbers went so high. Like, my initial reaction to this was, oh, I don't have to change how I'm engaging with the game and I get more experience. Cool. And then I saw how everyone else was reacting and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I engage with this game on an unhealthy level, and this is not most people's reactions.
I'm calling Hydra a casual, and Hydra's probably still in the top 10% plus, like maybe top 5, yeah. Top 8 of people that engage in the game. Because you make a podcast about it, you're involved in Discord, you pay attention to the meta
at least half of the weeks, if not the majority of the weeks of the months.
Like I'm painting you as this nomad hippie casual, and you know what? That's probably disingenuous because Hydra, you're probably closer to Spike than like your average casual too, and which another reason is like, well, like, okay, so like you're still in the top percent. How do you feel about the weeklies? And you hate them too. So it's like,
I think the change was insane in all honesty, and like I said, I realized that there's something behind it, and I realized that they were probably forced to go through with it, right? Like, they need to show some numbers, they need to impress. That's what happens, especially with an acquisition. With an acquisition, you need to show what's up, right? And you know what, you could lose your job if you don't push these things through, right? Like the people that probably did this are fearing for their jobs, right? Like that's a I'm not saying that's true, but it's a possibility for sure. They're trying to show what they can do. They're trying to do what they're being asked to do, whether it was the right thing or not. And they went through with it. Community told them they were wrong. SchmoopieDady.
Yeah. An interesting part to this is if we're talking about like engagements or impressions, how is that data filtered and or processed? Because are they considering botting accounts? Because I think the devs have also done a wonderful job of cleaning up. And no, it's not perfect. I'm still running into bots here or there. But they've done a wonderful job, I think, of to this point, definitely at like legend rank in Wild. You won't see an even shaman bot. All the people playing even shaman are real people. But right now I'm sitting at, I'm going to say, I was close to, last night I was second from the bottom on the legend ladder. And I was ranked 3,500 and let's say 47. Right? A couple months ago, that number might have been, I don't know, 7,000, 8,000. And in part, that's because we had so many bot accounts hitting Legend and Wild. So if we're counting that by engagement, the dev team, if engagement is really important, if they were self-serving and didn't care about player experience or anything like that, they might have held off on killing all these bots until the heat was kind of off on the player engagement. Because you know what bots are really good at? Showing up on spreadsheets is player engagement. And so if the player engagement numbers look like they're tanking, because they keep taking out these chunks of bots. What they're actually doing is they're actually giving you a more realistic picture of what the player engagement looks like. But to somebody who doesn't understand the situation and doesn't care, because that's time out of their day where they could be doing something else, right? They have other responsibilities, and they probably have other games they have purviews over, and they're just crunching numbers. They look at this and they're like, what the hell's happening with Hearthstone? Why is Hearthstone losing users? And so I don't know to what extent that pops up, right? Like, I don't on the spreadsheet. I don't have the data.
I think it's significant.
But I'm sure it's not an insignificant little dip. It's like, whoa, what's it? Like, how many thousands of bot accounts have they axed in the last couple months? We keep
a ton.
I mean, there's another one in the notes, right, where they did another like 240,000 that we haven't gotten to in the news yet. But like, this is sort of the news discussion. So like, to hell with it, we're going with it. And so.
Speaking of, let me take a brief detour into that last news topic before we get back to our discussion topic, which is bled into the news, which is appropriate that it has,
that's fine,
by the way. So real quick, April 2024 bot ban update. Know what I'm saying? In the Blizzard forums, let us know. Hey, everyone. We have another bot ban update to share with you. Since our last post, we've continued our regular cadence of anti-bot detection and actions. In that time, we've actioned over 240,000 additional accounts. In patch 29.2, we also made an update to arena matchmaking, taking a proactive step against extreme play patterns specific to that mode, sometimes referred to as barcode accounts. If y'all play Wild, you recognize these barcode accounts, whether you realize that that's what they're called or not. Now, if you repeatedly retire runs early, you will be put into a separate matchmaking pool for your run. Being able to retire an arena run early is an important feature for you to want to play a different deck. But for a small percentage of players, it's used to repeatedly draft new decks until they get one they consider extremely strong. This change preserves the ability for those players to find and play with those extremely strong decks if they want to, but they'll have to play against each other if they do so for a fair overall play experience for all players. Initial feedback on this change has been good, but it's still early on in this experiment. We'll continue to monitor the data and listen to your feedback on how changes affect your experience in game and make whatever changes are needed to make Hearthstone better for all our players. Thanks, and we'll see you in the tavern. Know what I'm saying?
Can I add a little background to this as to why they would go to this extreme? So a lot of the botting on ladder, a lot of it is theorized, any of the botting on the ladder that comes from, let's say, Chinese user base. At first, initially, it's people trying to build up their account, and then they get gold for their account, they get resources for their account, they can play the decks that they want. Okay, great. But a large driver for this that is present in the Chinese community that is not present in the Western community is high rolly arena runs are a cultural phenomenon. They love them. They absolutely love high roll arena runs. And there are some streamers who base their entire income off of high roll arena runs, to the point where what you can do in these circles is you could, let's say you bought an account, you grind gold on the ladder, you take the gold, you go straight to arena. You start trying to draft a high roll run. You know what that looks like. Once you've drafted a high roll run, right, this is a bot account, this is a burner, you don't care about it. You contact a streamer in question. You say, hey, would you like to buy my account for whatever, $2, right? Streamer says, yeah, sure, $2, no skin off my nose. Buys the account, all right, logs into the account, streams the run. When they're done with it, they own the account now. They chuck it in the garbage. It's a burner account. It's gone, all right? They don't really care because you just start another bot account for free, and hey, like it was a bot account. You didn't spend any money really like getting access to the code or running the code or anything like that. You just started up and you made $2. Great. And if you do this often enough, because again, it's arena, and you can keep cycling this over and over again. It creates a really tough atmosphere for regular arena players, because there's a lot of players who are just like, well, no, I'm playing with gold on my account and that I care about. I'm not going to retire early on my 150 gold, right? Whereas these guys, if they don't get the high roll run, they're retiring early, gone, boom. Next one, didn't get the high roll run, retire early, gone, boom. So this mechanic is meant to catch those people and basically force them to all play each other. Okay, you want to do a high roll run? That's fine. But you're going to play other high rollers. And you're not going to then make it harder for other people who are just trying to play arena normally in quote-unquote good faith.
To kind of yes and that as well, by kind of making this public announcement, one of the things that the bot accounts may start doing is not retiring early, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because that means that people who actually care about their account and who are doing these runs in earnest in general, if the bot accounts are not high rolling and are basically just like sitting there letting themselves get beat up for the first 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, that means that they're putting wins into the system. That means that the people who care about their accounts are getting these wins and are not necessarily being inflated, but the bot accounts at that point are putting wins into the system, wins into the kind of arena economy. And I don't think that that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I am surprised that they told us about that at large.
I actually kind of wish they kept it in secret and hoped that they had made that whole community kind of that whole, because it's not the whole Chinese community, right? Like, again, I always have to qualify this, but it is a phenomenon that just doesn't exist in the West. Like, we don't care as much about arena. Like, there are some guys like Save File that I love to watch that has 200 people watching him on a given night playing arena. Right?
And Save File's not buying these bot accounts either.
He's not buying these bot accounts.
File,
right?
Draft these arena runs. That's part of it.
He's a fantastic, and he has fantastic productions, and he works really hard, and he's a fantastic streamer. I encourage anybody, if you are interested at all at learning the arena game at all, like I was, he's the perfect person to follow and check out and watch his runs, because he's a highly entertaining, gigantic nerd. And has a broadcaster quality voice, right? And, and like, so like you get sucked into it. Like, it's like, man, I never thought I'd like arena. I'm getting sucked into arena. And so like, it's a guy like that who probably has him, Dreads, those are the two people that come to mind of people who are arena. I'm sure there are other big arena streamer. Judge, I've heard is big arena guy, but like together they're maybe getting like 1,000 people. If you add them all up, maybe like all the big arena streamers that are Western. Yeah. Like, you could have
maybe a little more, but yeah, about that.
You could have a single Chinese arena streamer pulling that. Right? Because like these high roll runs are that large, and the community is so big, and there's so much sort of money again driving behind this. So this was like kind of an under the hood change that I kind of wished, like you said, they'd kept secret, and then made them figure it out later. Though it might have become, they'd pay attention. They might have figured out, hey, I keep queuing into so and so on such and such account. But yeah, if these numbers are dipping, kind of bringing back to why we touched on this in the first place, if these numbers are dipping and these are hurting the engagement numbers, I mean, what you're going to see is like corporate might knock on the door and be like, guys, what's going on? The numbers are down. And then you start to explain, well, you see, we've started taking care of bot accounts. They're just, I don't really care. The numbers are down. Get them up. Bye. And then they leave because they got something else to do. Right. So it's
and this is just engagement numbers, because those bots are not spending money on the game at all. So this is just the engagement numbers, which is one of the things that mobile is kind of gauged on.
And if that's in hours, like, are you kidding me? A bot never sleeps. Like, hours are probably way down if they're killing bots. Way down. Like, I'm thinking of like logins or like games played. But if you're actually talking about like just hours online, taking a couple. I mean, how many bots have we taken out at this point? At least 1,000. Are we on 2,000 yet? 2,000 bot accounts?
I mean, we're at 240,000 just in April.
No, we're at like 1 million.
Are we at 1 million in? Are we 1 million in? Like, think about how many hours 1 million.
Yeah, it's got to be at least 1 mil.
Wild brain kicked in, and I was ignoring 3 zeros, so I apologize for that. How many hours played is that? And now think about that on paper on a graph, and someone's looking at it and it's just like, what the hell is why do we have engagement dipping in Hearthstone? Like, it has to be a factor to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm. And it's bizarre that dip in engagement is legitimately a success for the team because they're dealing with these bots so successfully, which as Wild players, I mean, as a Wild player myself, I personally benefit from this. My climb is more engaging. I'm dealing with more actual people. I'm seeing more individual decks. I'm not just seeing even shaman bots. Whenever I see even shaman, it's like an actual person playing it. Yeah. It's incredible. This is what I want to see. The team is doing a great job in combating the bots. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing this dip in quote unquote engagement, which is why perhaps, tinfoil hat, the C-suite is trying to get engagement up through the kind of jacking up of these weekly quest requirements to try and get people to engage with the game more.
Yeah.
To mirror what they were seeing with the bots as part of the equation.
I would probably say that pre-acquisition being completely a done deal, everything signed, everything, there were numbers, right? There were numbers, and then these bots have been cracked down on, right? And now those numbers aren't the same numbers anymore, right? They're not the same numbers. And so they gotta bring it back up somehow.
And again, this is only looking at it as a mobile game because sales are not impacted by this at all. But these bots, the point is that they're selling it for $2-3. Like, if they're making money on that $2-3 sale, that means that they are not spending money on the game at all. They're not buying the welcome bundle, like they're not spending $20 to buy a bundle. They're just farming gold, trying an arena run. Nope. This wasn't a high roll. Retire, farm more gold, rinse and repeat.
I think one thing that is kind of cool is that 10 years later, Hearthstone is so relevant still that this many people are botting and scamming and doing this sort of thing because the game actually is sort of a testament to how good the game really is and how many people are engaged, to that people are going through all these lengths to try to cheat the system, sell accounts, do all that thing. It's a bit of a compliment if you think about it that in a twisted way. It's a bit of a compliment to the game in a weird, twisted sort of fashion. If I developed a game and there were hundreds of thousands of people botting it and trying to scam the system, I'd be like, I actually kind of did something right.
I'm not even mad. I'm just impressed.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, to kind of put an end cap on the weekly quest discussion, which the bots kind of circuitously led us into and out of, I think that we will see continued tinkering with the weekly quest amounts, because I think that directive from the C-suite is probably still there. I think that they're still trying to get engagement up, and the weekly quests are how they want that to happen. At the end of the day, I hope that what we eventually get to is that my casual friends will be able to engage with the game and get more experience just like I am. with the current changes, with the initial changes even, I was just going to get more experience and kind of shrug and be happy. And I hope that that's what my casual friends are able to do too at the end of the day. And maybe that means that engagement in the game goes up too, which would be nice. I don't think we're there yet. I think it'll take a few more steps of iteration, but I'm hopeful that we get there because the devs who I've spoken with, they understand that, you know, trust has kind of been broken considerably with this initial change, and they don't want to lose people. I mean, what developer wants to lose people to like something stupid like this?
That'll make it worse.
I would like to give one final statement before we move on.
Absolutely.
Our next thing. So one thing that I think has been really cool that they've done for the last, I don't know how long it's been. Has it been 2 years or whatever since they started doing the event quests? The quest line for events. Whenever they added the little thing in the top left-hand corner, right? A couple of years now. That I think is a really cool way of having the extra engagement. So I mentioned Warcraft Rumble earlier had added Dark Moon Fair, right? And so that is a secondary way of having different quests, weeklies, dailies. Immediately I was all over it and I'm like, I'm going to do that thing, right? And then same thing with Hearthstone. When they have that special event, which they used to do the Fire Festival, that's ancient that when they started doing that, right? But recently it's been more of a thing. It's happening at regular intervals. However, I think that when they do that, it's a lot more work for them because they got to come up with a theme. They have to come up with the quest lines, all that. So more work goes into that. This was, let's just change the numbers, easy peasy, problem solved. Right? Mm-hmm. It seemed like a quick fix, but I think maybe with those special event quest lines, if there's something a couple times a month doing something like that, that type of engagement, in my opinion, I haven't seen the numbers, is a better way of doing it, because for me that's fun. I like doing those things. And you get the extra rewards. This is a little bit more XP, like woohoo, right, for doing that much more work. I like having that other thing, that other tree to climb, like at the top. That's a win, definitely. Like in my book, that's the way to do it. But there is obviously more hours of labor that go into that, but maybe that's what you got to do instead of just tweaking some numbers on the thing that's already in the game.
And I think those have been successful. Like I've heard of some people who otherwise wouldn't play the game being like, how much time left do I have to do like the whiz bang workshop thing, right? I remember, okay, it was a long time ago. I remember being a free to play player and being like the free pack was like manna from heaven. It's like, wait, I don't have to pay for this pack? Oh my gosh, this is so cool. And like those little events were such a neat little touch, and it's so Pollyanna to hear about it, but like it's like, wait, I can watch the Masters Tour on TV and I can get a couple free packs for watching for a couple hours. Sick. Like it's just like I was all about it. And like a little bit of goodwill in those ways does go a long way. So like, yeah, if they made those more frequent, where it's like, well, yeah, you've got the normal weekly track, but then you've also got this extra additional track that's like, you know, kicks in for higher involved people. I think that would be a good way to do it. I think it would be effective. I think it would incentivize people. There would be people who would push a little more to do it. You know, it's just like, I know we're all doing final thoughts, and like I'm not going to take a lot of time because I know Sheep wants to add to this. So I'll let Sheep add to this, but I'll just leave my final thought of just like who asked. Like this is what I keep coming back to. Like when we start talking about solutions and discussions, and you know, we have the public front is like, well, we're not going to go all the way back because everybody's already mad at us. So we're just going to stick this ground, and maybe we'll fine tune here or there, but they don't really say that out loud, but they're probably going to. It's just like, why did this change? And I keep coming back to who asked. And so just try to remember that. And don't get super mad at Hat, because even though Hat is the one that's talking to you, Hat is the cashier, Hat is the server, Hat is the customer service agent, Hat is not your dog to kick. Don't kick Hat, because
Don't shoot the messenger.
Hat takes your feedback to people who actually do things on the game and change the game. And Hat is a resource for the community to reach out to and talk to. And I got a little grumpy on Twitter because I heard people were being mean to Hat. And then like Hat is saying things like, man, I'm on like West Coast time and it's beer o'clock. And people are like, hey, Hat, what kind of beer are you going to have? He goes, Scotch. Right. And so that's people were super mad at Hat and just screaming at Hat. And it's just like, you idiots, be nice to Hat because Hat is not your dog to kick. And if you're one of the people who are mean to Hat for just being the liaison between Corporate Blizz and our community, and he's really good at it, by the way, and sending our feedback back up the chain and being like, hi, by the way, people are pissed, and here's the unique and fun ways that people are pissed that you should know about, right? And just sort of adding context like from the community about like why we're mad and the ways that we're mad. And just putting a human face on it and not just being like, I don't know, people are mad. We could leave one way, we could do it another way. Like Hat, I think, does a good job of being our advocate on that end. So don't be mean to Hat because that doesn't serve your interest. That just makes you look like a jerk. And now I'm done because I'm starting to feel myself get SchmoopieDady grumpy. And I know Hydra and Sheep have a little bit more to say on this. Hydra, go ahead because you wanted to add.
I just want to say Hat was and is one of us still, even though that he is part of Team 5 at this point. Let's not forget that he came out of this community. Dad legend, Coin Concede. He has been there like from the get-go as one of us, as a player in the trenches. And so being so good at what he does and his knowledge of the game, he was selected to be the community representative. So getting mad at him makes no sense because he is one of us. He has been chosen as this position. So it's the perfect person to communicate your feelings in the most respectful way possible.
And the majority of Team 5, the people who are like doing the development, started as players of the game at this point. Like Cora, Sage, Gallon, like these are people who were players first. And Cora's example was on Coin Concede, right?
Yep.
Like these are people who played the game first and now are making the game. And that's really, really cool. Again, they're not your dogs to kick. Honestly, when economy is concerned, they're not even the ones making these decisions.
No.
They want to make cool cards. They want to make cool things for you and me to play with and have fun with. And getting mad at them about economy things is just wasting your frustration. Like the people who are making these decisions, I don't know who they are. They don't want to be known. they're faceless suits for a reason. And I had something to add to what SchmoopieDady said earlier, but I got too excited about what Hydra said too. So I forgot what it was. That is okay. Me getting excited about what you had to say and yes-anding that is even better. So we have one more discussion topic. And I'm going to kick it over to SchmoopieDady to tell us about this Miracle Rogue deck. SchmoopieDady, take it away.
This is my favorite part.
All I need is a miracle.
I like taking you guys. This one time I did this, I really liked how this turned out. This one time I did this, it was just me and Hydra, and I threw him through the list at him. She's like, okay, what do you notice? And Hydra's like, ah! And like, it was kind of cool and organic about what came out of it. So I kind of want to do the same thing, but I already threw Hydra under the bus. I've heard his 2 thumbs. So Sheep, what do you notice about this list?
So what I notice about this list is it's a lot of draw. It's a lot of mana cheat, prep, coin, Shadow of Demise, which is either a prep or a coin or something else, depending on what it is that you played last. And then we've got like Arcanite Giant, and we've got Scribbling Stenographer. We've got Everything Must Go, which is, depending on what all we've drawn this turn. And we've got Zeph.
Is Hydra my star student? Let's see. Hydra, do you see something that's interesting?
Well, no, you're asking sheep, but I just know that a lot of these things get played for free.
Ooh, when do they get played for free?
When you play those cards, some of them on your turn, some of them within the game.
Yeah. Two of the ones that I was mentioning earlier in particular are free. The more cards you draw that turn, in particular, Everything Must Go and Scribbling Stenographer. And Arcanite Giant is not necessarily cards that turn, but most of the cards that you play are spells. So if you play a lot of spells, that's a lot of cards that turn. Arcanite Giant also gets incredibly cheap.
Sure. Anybody noticing anything that's missing in this list? That's kind of interesting.
Lothab.
Edwin.
Okay, Lotheb's good. Lotheb is good. Lotheb is at this point, like, it's one of the main ways you would beat Quest Mage, right? So you just sort of hold back. You play, you do your draw spells, and then you drop Lotheb with some giants, and then you just use all 4 bounces to play Lotheb over again. Sure. Sheep, do you see anything else?
You said bounces. No, I don't see any bounces. I don't see a Shadow Step. I don't see a break dance.
Yeah.
I don't see anything to bounce anything with.
So here's the weird part about this Miracle Rogue list is it's kind of a different take on your typical Miracle Rogue, where in the past we've utilized cards like Shadow Step or Break Dance to make more duders or bounce our duders or bounce our Edwins or bounce a Mailbox Dancer and just sort of like take advantage of effects where you're playing multiple cards and either getting our Arcane Giants down for free, or, we had, graveyards where we're making ghosties with stealth and we're making them big or big eddies. And this deck just wants to draw cards. So this particular list that Corbett hit rank 2 with was running Everything Must Go, which is, again, an 8-mana spell that gets reduced every time you draw a card that turn or play a card that turn. And
it's play, not draw.
Is it played or is it draw? I can't actually remember.
I think thought it was draw.
It's draw. Okay. So Scribbling Stenographer, which is cards played. Frostwolf Warmaster, which is cards played. Right. Frostwolf is a 4-mana 3/3. Stenographer is reverted to a 6-mana 4/4. It was good in Wild before it got nerfed. It was borderline after the nerf, but people had better ways to build Miracle Rogues. They said, screw it, we won't use it. But now it's back. And this list is pretty good in the form that it's in. But I have been playing this list all day. I've been watching people who are better than me try to refine it. And we've come to the conclusion that the whole reason why you would build the list in this way to experiment in the first place, Everything Must Go, sucks. Get rid of it. Chuck it out. Right? So there's 2 epics. There's 2 epics you don't need. Epics that you probably already have that you want to slot into that slot are Breakdance. So the full list is 2 Shadow of Demise, 2 Counterfeit Coins, 2 Preps, 1 Blackwater Cutlass, 2 Dig for Treasures, 2 Door of Shadows, 2 Gear Shifts, 2 Ghostly Strikes, 2 Gone Fishings, 2 Secret Passages, 2 Breakdances is what I suggest, 1 Quick Pick, 2 Swindles, Zephyrus the Great, 2 Frostwolf Warmasters, 2 Scribbling Stenographers, and that leaves 2 Arcane Giants. And what's really neat about this deck is that you are vomiting 3/3s and 4/4s as early as, honestly, turn 1 with some hands. I've been frequently finding myself going in on turn 2. I had one screenshot. I gave this deck to Neon Hair, and I had one screenshot. He was just like, I don't know. I had the hand for it. And so he went in on turn 1. He had a Zephyrus the Great in his hand, and he had an Arcane Giant that was reduced down to 4 mana on turn 1, and he floated 1 mana. You're playing just sort of an insane amount of stuff, an insane amount of cycle.
Wow.
It is rare that you get to turn 5 and Zephyrus is not online. I've had him online as early as turn 3 with a board full of stuff. What can you do with a Zephyrus that you play for 2 mana with 3 mana? You get a Cold Blood maybe. It gets a little bit goofy as far as I'm not bouncing stuff and I'm not chaining Lothebs and I'm not taxing my opponent, but I am aggressively fighting for board, and half the stuff that I'm fighting for board with has rush, and the other stuff that doesn't have rush are 8/8s. So
I know that not everyone is a fan of running Zephyrus in a 2-ofs deck, but I'm totally down when it's this much cycle. I'm totally down.
This is the most extreme example I've ever seen where it's actually appropriate. Like it's been,
It's cycle and cycle payoffs.
Zeph has been like one of the worst 3 cards statistically when you look at like win rates and play rates and stuff like that in Miracle Rogue. But there have been some hidden lines that people have kind of figured out. Like, for example, if you're running Shadow Steps, you can do something like play your Zeph, give a giant Wind Fury, Shadow Step it, play it again, get Cold Blood, slap Cold Blood on your giant, or get Enrage and slap Enrage on your giant. And now your giant all of a sudden is hitting for 20 or hitting for 24 instead of just hitting for, instead of just like slapping for 10. And that really greatly increases your reach. But something that's been sort of holding that back is like we're not in that sort of version. You're not running as much extreme cycle as this one. Some of the worst cards in the list I think are Quick Pick. You really only want to play Quick Pick on 2. I would keep it if I had it in the mulligan, but the cards you really want to mulligan for are Secret Passage or Gear Shift, preference to Secret Passage. And if I have Secret Passage, obviously I'm keeping Coins and Preps. Again, typically I'm going in on turn like 2, and I'm drawing it like I'll finish my turn 2 and I'll have 13, 14 cards in deck. And all of a sudden, having something like Zephyrus in your deck starts to make a lot more sense with this many 2-ofs, where it's just like, oh wow, it's like it's gone. Right. So I think this deck's really good. I thought I was going to climb with not even Paladin this month, next month coming up. It's probably going to be this. I've played it all day against the Innkeeper. It's really addictive. I love drawing a bunch of cards and playing a bunch of cards and doing the funny. This is very, very good. So that is my piece about Miracle Rogue, which is rated as tier 1 on the latest Tempo Storm report. This is the kind of build that is pushing that.
Right on. I like it.
I never, outside of like Classic, which was a very, very different Miracle Rogue, I never really just like got enough reps at Miracle Rogue to be consistent with it, to kind of know what I'm doing confidently with it. Like I could muddle my way through to like D5. This one where it's so streamlined and just draw and not the shadow step. There are no shadow steps. And not the breakdance. There aren't breakdances in the list that Cord posted. I'll probably run them instead of Everything Must Go.
Lasagna's running them over the Everything Must Go. If that make like a guy who's again, high rank, wild and standard. Corp hit rank 2. It's as far as he could push it. I think he really wanted to, like, he's somebody who sometimes tries cards for a long time to see if they work out. And so you see him in his lists, and then you kind of look at him and like, okay, well, do I change that? But it's funny, Sheep, it's like, this is almost an aggro deck, honestly.
Yeah, it kind of is.
if I'm real, it's a miracle deck, but like, it plays like an aggro deck because you're out of cards and you're out of stuff by like turn 5. And it's like, all right, did they kill me or not?
It takes until turn 5 with something like this draw heavy. Wow.
Sometimes the game's over turn 3, turn 4, but
which is way faster than Classic Gadget Send Auctioneer.
100%. 100%. But they were almost like you were like stealthing an Edwin and then buffing it up and drawing your whole deck that way, right? Like it was kind of goofy where it was like you had this big stealthy thing and then you'd pop somebody with it, or you would like do like Leroy Shadow Step, like whatever the they made a whole
Faceless
song
to get
it.
another Kopyev, Leroy.
Yeah.
I'm excited to play around with this.
You should, and I wanted to highlight it because I think it's this is I like we like keeping our podcast abreast of the latest trends in Wild, since we are heartless spikes and we're all war criminals here at this point. Even you, Hydra, even you're a war criminal. This is a cool take on Miracle Rogue that's a little bit different than one that's maybe you're used to, where you're making a big eddy and going from there. This is kind of just like I named my deck is just called Just Draw Idiot, with a period, and that's kind of the play style.
Unrelated Advice with SchmoopieDady.
The birds.
SchmoopieDady, you're a soccer player, right?
I am.
I remember you said that a while back you went and you played some soccer, and so, but you did that like quite a bit. So you would consider yourself someone who has been or is fit or knows how to be in a fit state of body. Yeah.
Yeah. Used to be. Yes.
Used to
but
be,
like
okay.
yes, I would say sure. Yeah.
Okay, so it is the mid to late April.
Uh-huh.
We got May, June. I got 2 months till summer hits.
Okay.
All right. 2 months. So I've mentioned it on the show before. It took me a while, but I did this thing where I had gained a certain amount of weight, and then I lost about 30 pounds doing, hiking, running, working out, changing my diet and everything. But it was just winter, and we're coming into summer again. And I didn't gain 30 pounds, but 5 or 6 pounds or whatever, something like that.
And I may have gained 30 pounds.
And then, okay, well, then you can help sheep out here too. All right. So
I gained 15. I'm glad we're all in the same boat.
Okay. Guess what? Summer's right around the corner, man. And
Right around the corner.
What I want to know is, for my 5 or 6 pounds, or sheep's 30 pounds, what are we gonna do? We got 2 months, man. We got 2 months. What are we gonna do so we can go to the beach?
Well, if you want to be a whale in Hearthstone but not look like a whale, the thing that I think is most effective for me at this point, because like I'm so burned out as an athlete. I played soccer from the age of 4 to I played like 4 years in college at a D3 level, but it was in the SUNYAC system, so it was like the state of New York system.
Is this Diamond 3, or is that a thing that I don't know in soccer?
No, it's a different thing. So like if you watch like sports on TV, right? Like if you watch sports on TV, like you watch like a Texas A&M, that is a Division 1 school. That is like some of the best athletes. There's a lot of those guys. A small percentage of those guys will go pro, right? The league that I played in for the state of New York, though, this may shock you, but there are a lot of athletes that don't have a lot of money or aren't incredibly smart, and so they decide they're going to go to a state school. And so the state of New York, being so large as it is, actually had a very competitive, and still does have a very competitive D3 ladder. Like we'd play other D1 schools, and we weren't very good in our eyes, but we would still like beat them, because it was just kind of like, well, I mean, you're D1 in Rhode Island. Like what the hell's going on in Rhode Island? So I am so burned out as far as training goes that I'm probably one of the worst people to ask this question, but I find the thing that works best for me are long walks on the treadmill, because I've retired from running for exercise. Like, to hell with that. I will play soccer. I'll run and play soccer. I'll play kickball. I'll play softball. Like I will run for a purpose, but run for the sake of running, I pick up runner's injuries. I'm anywhere from 30 to 40 pounds heavier than I used to be in my best shape when I was running. And I feel those joint injuries, and I feel them coming on, and I'm sensitive to them because I'm an athlete, and I know when to shut it down and be like, you can't do this. You will go on and continue to hurt yourself. So I have to walk.
I got sciatica. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not at a certain point it's not worth it. It's like, listen, the mind might be willing because I can run forever, right? I've trained myself where I can push myself to run forever. It's just I'm in my mid-30s now. I'm 35 years old. You can't do it. So what do I do? When I do work out, I really like to walk on a high incline for a long period of time for a sustainable speed. Because if you're really interested in just burning fat, exercises that are low speed but long duration are the most effective, because you're going to be burning through your initial sugars and stuff, and then you just got to start, and then you're going to hit the wall, and you're going to have to push through the wall, and you'll be like, I feel like I can't go another step. I can't feel like I got to go another step. And maybe you cheat a little bit. Maybe you have a little sip of something, like a little sip of Gatorade or something like that, a little quick sugar to kind of bridge the gap. But then you're going to feel great. And then you're like, all right, I can go forever. And then you're breaking into your long-term energy stores that your body, there's always a gap between that, right? They talk about that runner sitting the wall. You just got to get to the wall. And then you end up really burning the stores that you have built up. And if you do that regularly and keep that going, you'll see results. I saw results. I went from, I'm about to, unfortunately next week is a very special episode and I'm going to miss it because I'm going to be playing in my alumni soccer game. And last year I played and I was like, holy cow, I feel like a bloated whale. I am a traffic cone out here. I can no longer play. It was years since I played in the last one. The last one I was fairly competitive and I sort of kept up with the kids. I can't do that anymore. And I was just like, you know what? I really need to lose weight. I really need to work out. And so I went from, I think, like 225 down to 205, which was great. I felt great. I felt much, much lighter, which was still heavier than like when I was playing soccer. I was like 185 at my heaviest, 170 at my lightest. And I've kind of gained that weight back because I started streaming and stopped working out. So I know it works. It almost all works. I was doing that and I was doing jumping jacks. And so like set a certain amount of jumping jacks, try to get a little bit of cardio in so that you are getting your heart rate up and going from there. That's what I would do. But you know what? Sheep is also an athlete. Sheep was also a fairly serious runner, if I recall, right? Which I respect because my brother used to run competitively. Again, in the state of New York, in their Empire system. So, like, I have running in my family. I have people in my family who do marathons and whatnot, those lunatics. And so I'm interested to hear what Sheep has as far as input on this topic.
So, honestly, my input is going to be kind of minimal because as far as running goes, I can't do it anymore. Like I mentioned, I've got sciatica. Like, my sciatica was flaring up this week. Standing, sitting, moving, bending over was not going to happen for me. That's most of the things, by the way. Stretching, that is about the only thing that was happening for me.
Yeah.
But SchmoopieDady, one of the things that you mentioned was the long walks and stuff like that, where you're not like going into the oxygen deficit. It sounds like you're talking about more aerobic activity than anaerobic activity. Anaerobic activity is where you're not just getting the heart rate up, but you're keeping it sustained and you're doing that oxygen kind of deficit stuff. And I took aerobic running in college, and in order to get an A, you had to run a 2 miles in like less than a 7-minute mile pace, which is anaerobic running, not aerobic running, by the way. I digress. You were talking about aerobic activity. And for me, someone who has put on more pounds than I'd care to admit in the past, few years, especially the past year, kiddo, grad school, work, Hearthstone, like most of these are sedentary activities. Doing some aerobic activity rather than anaerobic activity, rather than trying to jump into like running 2 miles, makes a lot of sense for me. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense for me.
I walk at like, we'll say like high 3 miles per hour. I don't know what that puts into funny speeds. Hydra, I'm sorry. I'm not capable of translating Canadian at this point, but
we're well aware.
Yeah, it's a good point. So like I'm doing like 3.8 miles per hour, and I'll be playing Hearthstone the whole time because honestly, like me concentrating, I'm walking. I know it's on a high incline, but me concentrating on a game. And like, okay, taking it turn by turn by turn. What is my opponent doing? I almost zone out. I tried to watch TV. I can't watch TV. I tried to watch One Piece and walk, and I'm just like, nope, don't care. Next plot line. What the hell is happening? I just found myself just kind of like being like bored by the shows I was watching. I'd be watching JoJo's. I don't know how anybody could be bored watching JoJo's, Great Adventure, because everything is just like one gigantic.
Bizarre.
Crisis, bizarre adventure. It's like one gigantic like, oh my god, the character's hand is off, he's never gonna get his hand back, he's gonna bleed out. No, never mind, it's fine, it's solved. Like it's like one gigantic, and it, like then the next crisis starts and it's just as bad. Oh my god, the thing's around his heart, he's gonna die. Never mind, it's figured out. And it's just like careening from like one thing to the other. I'm like, this is really stressful, but also I'm not engaged because I'm worried about how much I'm walking. Hearthstone worked for me. So like Hearthstone ladder works for me. It's like, all right, let me grind standard and I guess get on the treadmill for an hour. And, an hour at like, high 3 miles per hour at a high incline. I've been doing 15% recently. But again, if that's a lot for you, dial it back. Because I can't run anymore. That seemed to work. What were you going to say, Hydra? Sorry.
Well, there was one or two things. I would like to remind the listeners that the metric system is not a Canadian thing. It is like 99% of this entire planet. By the way,
allegedly,
and it's about 6 kilometers per hour. You're 3.8, but
it's only 33% of this podcast.
For now, you'll see. But also, when you suggested long walks on the treadmill, I so thought you were going to be like, long walks on the beach.
Wiser words have never been spoken. And you heard that on...
Born to be wild.
I totally thought you were going to say long walks on the beach, too.